Despite the popularity of programmed drums, especially in metal, it's super important to know how to mix a natural kick drum, as there's nothing quite like it. In this clip, David shows you how he uses not one, but two separate kick drums to form the basis of a killer tone in Decapited's Just a Cigarette. Check it out and enjoy.
So all of those mics are going in firstly to this one, the mono aux. Like when I start blending my real kicks and my samples, here I can tweak it a little bit just to get the low end where I want it. Where it's... I'll always start with a depleter. To me, it's almost the same setting. It's just finding fundamental of the kick, which varies from each project, but it's usually pretty close. The other way to do it, if you want to tweak it that way, is pull this up, and here you see your fundamental frequency, and you can play it through any like frequency analyzer. You can probably find it, you know, this way. And then I always have the SSL EQ. I'm still using the old Waves E channel. So what I would go for here is just try to fine tweak the EQ of this mic a little bit. Clean out like the low mids a little bit. Then I always have this loaded, like my 1176, but it's not like, depends on if I use it or not, you know. Depends on how even the kick is played and how much it affects the sound, like the tone of it, that microphone, if I use it or not. Here I like it with, just makes it a little bit more punchy and controls the low end a little bit. Sometimes it takes out too much of the low end, but it's not an issue here, I think. And then after, if I feel like I need it, I always have the Pro Q3 EQ, which I use a lot, just to fine tweak things. Cleaning up a little bit more of the low mids and make that transient a little bit warmer sounding. And then it's pretty much the same for, there's two microphones inside. Usually I think this is the same. I have a Beta 52 Shure and usually a Shure SM91 or something similar. And I go through the same process with that microphone. So here's a little bit getting rid of that snare bleed with that filter, and then just finding the blend between them. And then in the end we have a third one, which is usually a U47 for me on the outside. I'm just EQing a little bit to get rid of the bleed, and I just want to keep like the low end and low mids and blend that in. And again, this is like an ongoing thing. When I start blending them together, I'm muting stuff and just see if there's things I want to cut out or not. Somewhere there is where I would end up and just move on. And in this instance, it's 2 kick drums. So we have the same setup for the second kick. But then I kind of fine tweak it a little bit to make them sound good together. And to me, I think it's kind of cool that you don't want them to sound exactly the same. When you have them sounding a little bit different, which they're always going to be sounding different when it's 2 different drums, even if you try to tune them as good as you can, and the drummer is, hitting it differently with his other foot and everything. So frequency-wise, I want it to be in the same league as the other kick, but it's still, I want it to sound different. That's what makes it less trigger, like sample sounding. So we want it to be a little bit uneven and sounding a little bit different. It makes it more realistic to me. That one had, to me, that transient was a little bit annoying. So I use a lot of lo-fi, this plugin, to just control it a little bit. Usually I'm just between 0.1 to 0.5, depending on how much I want to hear the distortion in it or saturation. But usually it's used just a tiny bit, but it's kind of a tape saturation thing for me. It's controlling the high-end transient things. And from that on, I would start working on the overheads, actually. So when I have my kick, so that's how I have the kick sounding. I would move on to just get my overheads in the ballpark.